A common conversation is having the gun fit your hands and if the gun you have is the best fit. I think there's a bit of flawed thinking that you should buy a different gun or that maybe the gun you have won't work. I think instead just some changing the grips, changing the back straps, using a little grip tape, maybe a little silicone carbide. Something like that is probably all that's needed to make the gun work for you. I want to talk through a handful of guns and just what I like and don't like. So on a broad stroke, what we're looking for is obviously firing hand. Sits on the gun like this. You want to have enough room for your support hand to contact the grip. What we're looking for is when the gun recoils, firing hand and support hand all move with the gun. The wrong thing would be to have your support hand stay in place and your firing hand like that, recoiling along with the gun. It should all stay together. Actually, Glocks are not one of my favorite, and I'll explain a few reasons why. And it's just a me thing. It's like for the next person, it works great. So notice when I just grip the pistol normally, this is how much room I have left for my support hand. And it just feels tough to get my support hand in that small little area that's available and get traction. Part of the reason for that is the side of the grips are completely flat. There's no contour, no raised sections to grip onto. Adding grip tape, stippling, silicone carbide, or changing the back straps does help with that. But in the end, it's just me. It's not you, it's me. The Glocks just never really feel that great in my hand, and I end up getting tendonitis from them. So anyway, this is just an example of one that I can make work, but it's just not really one of my favorites for a few reasons. The biggest one being the flat panels on the side and not having enough room for my support hand to fit into. Fast forwarding, this one's a Tanfoglio stock 2. This gun is choice. And this gun, notice, I have contoured grips. So these are called palm swells, and it gives you raised sections. And so it's adding to the diameter of the gun, giving you a little bit more to hang on to. When I grip this gun, notice I've got a little bit more space in here than I had previously with the Glock. And the other thing I really like, or another thing I look for, is when I put my finger on the trigger, I like pulling the trigger with that first joint of my finger if possible. So when I just grip this pistol, the trigger feels like it's just in the right position. So I have plenty of leverage for pulling the trigger. And it feels like there's plenty of room in the grip panel for my support hand. So this gun just feels very comfortable for me. But for the next person, they might hate the gun, hate the size of the frame, not like the grip panels. So it's very much a personal thing. It's a personality thing, what you like, what you don't like. So anyway, for me, this gun, it feels like I have a lot of control and the trigger's in a perfect position for my finger to get to it. One thing I really don't care about is the mag release. Some people get pretty spun up about wanting like the extended levers, something that, a paddle that comes back towards your grip so you can hit it with your thumb without shifting your grip at all. I'm not a fan of those. I've seen too many of them fail, either hitting a holster or maybe it's a loaded start for people that shoot practical shooting. The gun's down something like this, going to pick it up, pushing down it just a little bit and having that button stick out just enough that it gets hit on the barrel and drop the magazine, something like that. Instantly killed on the streets. So I just don't like the extended magazine releases. And for me, in all the guns I've shot, I always just have to switch my grip just a little bit, shift it in my hand to get to the button. That's fine. As far as the slide release goes, I don't care. Since I'm a left-handed person living in a right-handed world, I can normally get to it with my trigger finger. Some of the guns, like the Walthers, have ambi, but that's not even a consideration for me. So for me, it's just, does it feel like I have good control over the frame, contacting my hands, and can I get to the trigger easily? So, following that thought process of things I like, here's a Walther steel frame. So this one, like the previous gun, has removable grip panels. So just a couple screws, you can take this off and change these for a variety of grips. There are metal, polymer, silicone carbide, there's a multitude of options. These specifically are lock grips, and these are palm swelled. So just like the previous ones, they kind of flare out in the middle. And so for this one, I'm showing you all the things I liked on this one, on the previous gun. On this one, I don't really like the palm swells. because the frame's a little bit different, whether front to back, side to side, whatever. When I grip the gun, you look at how much space I have, it all looks right, but just when I grip it, I don't really love the way it feels in my hand. I could still shoot it just fine, but if I had a bunch of them on a table to choose from, this wouldn't be the one I'd choose. The other thing I don't like about these specifically is they call this pattern the bogeys. It's very sharp, and just where my hands fit, when my fingers wrap around, they end up kind of just catching. You can see where it's wore down there. The pro grip's wore down. And that part of the checkering, and then when my support hand comes in and clamps down, it just smashes the tips of my fingers into that checkering, and it's quite uncomfortable. So I don't really get any extra traction. It's kind of uncomfortable. And on this gun, I don't really love the palm swell. So then after talking crap about flat grips on the Glock, this is my go-to Walther PDP steel frame. This one has the factory grips on it, which are basically, flat, not that much contour. They just have silicon carbide added to it for grip. But for whatever reasons, the dimensions, this one's a little bit fatter gun overall than what the Glock is. This one, when I grip the gun, about the same amount of space in this section that I have with the other guns, but it just feels like my support hand fits and locks in there perfectly. I can get to the trigger, and this one's my go-to grip. I really like this one, but it's got some stuff. It doesn't have the palm swell I liked on the other gun. It's flat, which I don't really like on the Glock. So the moral of all this stuff is you can probably make whatever you have work. The stuff I look for is just being able to get a grip on the gun, again, where I feel like my support hand has room to go. An example of the grip not working, I'm exaggerating, would be if your fingers come around this far or something like this, because then I really wouldn't have any place for my hand to go. It would be just my hand holding on to my other hand, not actually contacting the frame, because contacting the frame is where you're going to get the recoil control from. So I want to have enough room on the pistol that I can interact with the frame, contact the frame, and then just to have, if possible, some amount of gripping or contoured finish to give me some aid and traction on the gun. Overall, like I said, all these are quite different guns, and I can make them all fit my hands for various reasons. The Glock, I could mess with it a bit and do silicone carbide, probably add some grip tape, maybe change the back strap and find a configuration I like for that too. So people work hard for their money. I would say if you have a gun already, it's not necessarily that you have to sell it and buy a different gun, but most guns either have removable side panels like this with a couple screws, or the polymer style guns like the Polymer PDP, got one a little ways away from me, has the back strap, the chunk of the back that comes out. So changing those between the 3 different sizes it comes with is going to change the diameter of the gun and how far it is from the front to the back. So just trying around, testing the other options just to find one that gives me, where I feel like after I grip the gun, I have room for my support hand. When my support hand's on the gun, it feels like I have control. I'm contacting the gun all the way around, and I can still get to the trigger finger easily, or get to the trigger easily. So anyway, I don't really have any always and never types of statements. It's just messing with the gun a little bit to make it fit you. And the guns I've shot over the years, especially for competition, they're not always set up the same way. It's just whatever feels right. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful, gives you some things to think about. If I can impress one thing upon you, it would be try different size grips before you buy one, just because they're expensive. If your gun comes with different back straps, try all of them. Adding some grip tape is a good idea. Silicone carbide, although permanent, is quite good also, because you can build it up. If I wanted to, I could build up a select area of this, or have one side built up more over than the other. And if it's on a removable grip panel, then it's not even as permanent. So if you don't like it, you could always trash it or do it over again. So anyway, hopefully that gives you some things to think about when you're fitting your gun to your hands.